Hi, my name's Steve and I love people who make things. On the factory next door, we don't just meet the makers, we go through their factory gates. Hello Lynn, how are you? So we're passing now rows and rows of partially built frames. Each episode focuses on one beautifully made piece and the person behind it.
It's not about the money, it's about achieving what you want to achieve.
We never argue. I'm sure we have a bit of a...
Yeah, we have tense moments.
Join me, let's go travelling. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, very good, thank you. Welcome to the factory next door and welcome to the Teddington Arms pub in South West London. Plenty of Christmas decorations up this evening, and during this festive season it seems appropriate we celebrate a British classic, the pint, or specifically the Cask Ale, which is the hand-pulled beer you get in pubs. Whilst I get myself a pint and a pickled egg, have a listen to what's coming up in this week's show.
Cask beer is the best way to serve beer because it's fresh, it's a living product.
Why are you stepping into a market that is shrinking?
They must be mad at the moment to go into brewing. It's such a hard industry with very little returns at the moment.
It smells like a fruit salad. It's just like, wow.
And all these flavours come from hops. There is no fruit in this. As someone who was just homebrewing for years, when you walk into a pub and you see people stood around drinking pints of your beer, that is a weird feeling. And it's...
Do you ever go, oh, I brewed that?
No. I'm far too shy to say it.
So sales of cask ales like the one I'm drinking now are falling. They have been for years. European and American-inspired lagers are becoming more popular. You've still got lots of great cask brewers out there, many with long traditions and stories behind them. But I wanted to meet someone starting out on their cask ale journey. I mean, who launches a brewery focusing on a beer that is becoming less and less popular every year? Let's go to West Sussex and ask someone.
I'm Liam Brooker. I'm the owner and head brewer of Aleworks Brewing Co. We're on the Nepcastle estate, which is just east, I believe, of Horsham. As you can see, we are very much on a working farm. You've got stables, you've got the cow sheds there with the longhorn cows, and the brewery sits in the middle.
So before we go in the brewery, can I just have a quick look at the longhorned cattle? They look amazing. Look at those. Hello, my friend.
As you walk around the estate, you often notice the longhorns. There's also got wild boars that walk around the estate, and they've got some beautiful stags as well. They're generally just walking freely around the estate. So you can be walking along and suddenly around a corner, one is just here with his huge antlers.
Are they ever attracted by the smell of the beer?
They have actually been recently trying out the grain for them to eat, all of our spent grain, which is great. At the end of a brew, you've just got kilos upon kilos of this wet grain that generally goes in the bin. So if you've got cows or horses, the horses also have some of the grain as well. So if you've got animals that can eat it, it's great because it gives you a second use for the grain rather than just throwing it away.
Okay, well on that, let's have a look at the process itself and step in. So the barn itself, do you know what kind of era this is from?
When we took it over, it was very much still a milking parlour, so we have had to completely gut the place. Excuse the loud.
Oh, and I'm greeted by a lovely motorbike. Is that your Harley?
That is indeed. Well, it was one of those. I had the space here, and I thought, you know what, let's let her live inside.
Okay, so we've come into the old milking parlour, and I'm immediately greeted by lots of empty beer bottles and some cylinders. Give me an idea of what I'm looking at here.
So over here we've got the brew system itself. This is what we'd call a hot side. So it's made up of three pieces. You've got your hot liquor tank, you've got the mash tun, and you've got the kettle. The mash tun is where the conversion happens from the grains to get your hot wort, which is essentially the precursor to beer, which you're then pumping into the kettle, which you would then boil. And that is where you add things like the hops. And so if you put hops right at the beginning of the boil, you'll get a lot of bitterness. That's where you get that bitter flavour from the beer. Around the middle area is where you'll get the flavour from the hops, and towards the end is the aroma. So if you want a very bitter beer, you'd focus all at the beginning of the boil. Whereas if you wanted a very hoppy, floral, fruity beer, you'd go right at the end. Once we've boiled the beer, we'll put it through a chiller, which will then come into the fermenter, usually at about 19, 20 degrees. That's where we add the yeast, and that's what converts the wort into beer. So until it hits here, it's wort, but once it's in here, you've got beer.
So how long does it take from start to finish?
So when the beer comes out of here into cask, it's drinkable, but it's not finished. It's kind of, it's become beer, but it needs to then condition. So that's when you'll put it into the casks and let it basically sit, and all the flavours meld together. It gets fizzy, and you get that nice, lively beer. Whereas if you do take this out here now, it'd just be completely flat. So 2 weeks and you've got technically beer. 4 weeks and you've got delicious beer. So that's when the pubs will take it.
Great. Okay, so Liam's made us a cup of tea. Thank you very much. Just give me an idea about launching this place.
Well, I was a home brewer for many years, and I always loved brewing. And it was really when we went into COVID that all the pubs shut. I was furloughed from my job, and I was just sat at home with nothing, literally nothing to do. And I really just became obsessed with the brewing process and everything. And I started really home brewing a lot at home. And I think we got to the point where I'd brewed 50, 60 batches of beer. And I sort of said to Harriet, I was like, I'd really like to do this with my life. I was like, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. It sounds really cheesy, I know. I was in a job which couldn't have been any different at all. And
What was that job?
I was working in an engineering company, and I was like a forklift driver. And
Okay.
it was the same thing every single day, and it was just boring and samey. And brewing just, I don't know. I'm not very good at taking stuff in that much, and brewing, I just seem to absorb it. And so we decided to go around to the local farms. So we made up a little letter, and it was, hi, we're Liam and Harriet. We're looking to start a little craft brewery. Do you have any spaces? We're happy to take an old unit and fix it up, make it into a brewery. And we had sort of like a tour of a few farms, and we found this place. And I think it was a milking parlour up until the early 2000s. And since then, it's pretty much just sat with nothing in it. And so we had to, completely. We were wearing full boiler suits with Jay's fluid, scrubbing every inch of the walls, the floor, everything, to get it to the point where it was actually usable as a space.
Can I just pick up on the moment where you say to Harriet, actually, do you know what? I think my calling is in beer.
Well, I was very fortunate in that Harriet loves beer. Like, she was raised on Cask Ale, that's her thing as well. So I think she was there as, obviously, while I was learning to brew, so she could see the quality of the beer was going up. And I think she was also getting utterly sick of the kitchen, just being a brewery. So, because there was points where there'd be like 4 or 5 fermenters around the house, just all bubbling away while she's trying to do her thing, and you just got fermenters, the smell of yeast just in the air. And it was just like, I think she was quite happy when I said, I'm going to move it outside the house to an actual place. So she was quite happy with that, I think. But I mean, obviously, it was a big thing to do. Like, it's a big risk, and it was, we had to obviously buy the brew system and all of this. So it was financial risk, and but it was one of those. She couldn't have been cooler about it, to be honest.
Do you listen to the show?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
That could have gone terribly bad. Have you heard the Pashley episode, The Princess's Bicycle?
Yeah, I listened to that the other day.
Because Adrian, who runs Pashley, talked, actually, I found it very moving, where he was talking about his late wife supporting him and how important that was to the success of his business.
No, very much. I can see that for sure. Like, there's times when you get home and you're stressed and tired, and having that other person there who's there supporting you to see you through it, I wouldn't be able to do it without Harriet at all. So I'm very thankful to that. We got a small loan to get the brew system, And then we pretty much just paid everything ourselves. So as we got paid from work, the money would just go straight into the brewery. And it was, we've for years, just I think since 2021, we've just put everything we have into the brewery. So, we don't really go out and party as much as we used to. Instead of that, we'll buy some casks or a nice sink for the brewery.
Tell me about the kegs.
So these are casks. So basically, this is...
Sorry, I got the wrong term, didn't I?
Yeah. So kegs are the modern way of doing beer. So basically, these are the traditional English casks. So you've got your shive and your keystone holes. Basically, it's the similar situation as to bottle conditioning beer. So you put your beer into the cask, sorry.
That was my fault. I'm so sorry. I'm confusing.
So you'll put the beer into the cask with a little bit of sugar and your fining agents. Fining agents basically will clear the beer. If you were to take cask beer and a keg beer, the carbonation levels are very different as well. So with this, you're going for quite low volumes of CO2 in the beer, whereas with a keg beer, you'd go for quite a lot higher. So that's what makes cask beer very different to kegged beer.
I want to ask you about your love of cask, because if you look at sales of cask, they're actually going down. In 2021, cask beer accounted for 4.3% of total beer sales, which seems very low to me. And what's particularly upsetting is that it's halved in the past 8 years. And why I was keen to chat to you is because you are just starting out. You're not historically, there's not a legacy there in terms of you're a brewer who has traditionally done cask and you've branched out into other things. Within the past year, 2 years, you're like, my heart is in cask. This is what Harriet and I are going to step into. Why are you stepping into a market that is shrinking?
Personally, our ethos is what we want to bring Cask Ale, but with the flavours of modern craft beer. Cask beer is the best way to serve beer because it's fresh, it's a living product. And for us, it's an English tradition. It was really sad to see it declining so much.
I know someone else who agrees with you. Earlier this year, I headed off to a big old celebration of British beer to have a chat with someone. Let's just take a moment and have a listen to this. Just a word of warning, the doors I'm about to go through, it's very noisy on the other side. And it's a heavy door. Welcome to the Olympia Conference Centre in West London. Built in 1886, it was actually originally constructed to host agricultural shows. But I am not here for the marrows or the heifers. I'm here because right now, it's the Great British Beer Festival. Okay, so we've just stepped out from the beautiful looking domed glass hall just into a slightly quieter spot to sit down and have a little chat with Nick Antoner, who's the chairman of CAMRA, which is the Campaign for Real Ale, who organised the festival. Give me an idea of the range in terms of numbers you've got here.
Right, well, we've got over 900 different beers, ciders and perries, and continental and bottled beers from probably somewhere in the region of 300-400 different breweries. Something that's unique about this festival is that for many years we've had our American cask bar, always proves very popular.
American beer at a Great British Beer Festival, is that slightly controversial?
Not really, because the beer, the American cask we've got is all beers that are in that unique British style, cask beer. Apart from the beers that these Americans are brewing and pour to come over here, there is no other cask available around the world.
Okay, you mentioned there a phrase that I really want to expand on, which was lovely, which is the beer that is uniquely British, the uniquely British way of making beer. Tell me about that.
Well, that beer style is a beer called cask, or real ale, as it is sometimes known as, an unpressurised cask that relies on the natural carbonation of the beer to keep it fresh. Everywhere else in the world, they tend to cover their beer in carbon dioxide. There's nothing wrong with that if it's good beer, and it's in a sealed container, whereas a cask is open to the atmosphere, if you like, because once you broach it, you've got to let it breathe so that the beer can flow through the system. Cask beer continues to kind of mature and develop the flavour right up until the time it's in your glass on the bar.
Tell me about the industry. Tell me about where we're at the moment in terms of the numbers of people making cask ales.
We have seen an expansion. Unfortunately, although we've got 1,700 breweries, those breweries are not, the majority of those breweries are not getting access to the market. The brewing or the beer market in this country is dominated by the big brewers, global brewers these days. And a big percentage of the beer you see across the bar is from those big 5 or 6 brewing companies.
Why do you think we've had this explosion in the number of brewers?
It probably goes back to small brewers' relief. About 10, 15 years ago, Seba and Cameron managed to persuade the government of the day to introduce something called small brewers' relief. And they qualify by brewing below a certain volume of beer. So if they stay below that one, they pay 50% less duties. It was really there to kind of level the playing field for some of the smaller breweries to innovate in this country. We've always been an innovative country in the sense when it comes to wanting to see a range of things. And if you compare us, for example, to Germany, they've got very strict rules on what can be in a beer, where in this country, we like to innovate. We like to try different things in beers.
I'm sure, Nick, you're meeting the brewers all the time. Tell me, are there specific characteristics that these people share?
They must be mad at the moment to go into brewing. It's such a hard industry with very little returns at the moment. They're paying high VAT, lots of other overhead energy costs have gone through the roof. They must be mad, but they're quirky characters, and I love them all. The ones I've met, I've never met a brewer that I've never got on with or enjoyed their company, and I think they're great people, and who've, in a lot of cases, it's their second career. They've moved out of other careers when things changed in their life, and they wanted a different role. But it's a hard job.
Nick, thanks so much for taking time to chat to me.
Okay, thank you very much.
The festival is in full swing now. You can probably hear they've got a band up on a stage there belting out tunes. It's probably time for me to head off now. Are you mad?
A little bit. I think so. No, it's a passion thing, really, isn't it? I mean, something might not be easy, but it's fun.
How do you cope with those days when you doubt yourself? Because there must presumably be some days when you doubt yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's one of those, where we are as well. We're in Sussex, which is ridiculously expensive area anyway. But, the pubs we have are little drive-to pubs, and there's a lot of competition to get into those particular pubs. And for us, I mean, our sort of plan was always to start with a very small radius around the brewery and just slowly grow it out. There's just every pub, you've got 5 breweries knocking on the door because they want the same thing. So
talk me through that process. I mean, do you literally go up to the pub?
Yeah.
Say,
it's horrible. It's really horrible. I love making beer. That's where my talents are. Selling beer is certainly not something that I've had to go to many pubs. I've had doors shut in my face, and the big thing as well is you go to certain pubs and they seem very free, because obviously you have tied pubs and freehold pubs. Around here, we are very fortunate that a lot of the pubs are freehold pubs, but some of the tied pubs you don't actually realise are tied. So you walk in, hello, I'm Liam, I own Aleworks, I'd love to sell some beer to you. And it turns out they're tied to one of the big breweries.
Presumably you go in, you say, "Hi, I'm Liam. I produce some amazing beers. Would you like to try them?"
Yeah.
Can I try some?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Liam's grabbed an unmarked brown bottle.
So obviously I can't do straight cask beer simply because it would really open in a 9-gallon cask. However, what
We
we've
could
got
get through 9 gallons. We got hours, we're okay.
No, these basically what we had to do when we first started making the beer. Every time I did a brew, while I was casking, I would take a few bottles off, well, a few litres into a bottling bucket, so I could actually take the same beer which is in the casks, but put it in a bottle, give it the same principles. But you'll get the flavours of what's in the barrels. So this beer here is our Stay Gold. It's named mostly through the colours that you see in it. And you'll immediately, before you even get it near you, smell the fruits.
Oh, wow.
So you'll get loads of tropical fruit. And, you know, this is very much the American style of beer in my views. Like, English hops that we would use are more floral, hedgerow is what they're described as. Whereas these are actually New World hops. So they're New Zealand, Australian hops.
I mean, you can really, I can really smell, and my sense of smell, I'm afraid, is not very good, but even I can really smell lots of fruit.
Yeah.
It smells like a fruit salad. It's just
crazy,
like,
isn't it?
wow.
This and all these flavors come from hops. There is no fruit in this. The hop is such an incredible plant. Like you can get endless flavors from different hops. You know, mostly fruit flavors, to be honest. But you know, there's also hops that give you green pepper flavor. You'll get hops that give you grass and hay. You know, and each different country's got their own sort of style of hops. Like English hops, as I say, they're very floral. You know, like our traditional Fuggles, which we use a lot of in our Southern Ranger. That's very floral. It's not. There's no fruitiness really. It's more hedgerow, blackberry maybe. But yeah, this one here, you've got a lot of pineapple and mango, that sort of fruits in it. And I mean, when you taste it, it's delicious.
Okay, let's have a taste.
But you'll also see like the carbonation in this. You know, this is all naturally carbonated. That is all through bottle conditioning.
It's interesting because I normally associate cask ales with something darker.
Yeah. So you'd have obviously this is exactly what I was saying. Like we want to push IPAs, pale ales, stuff like that on cask. Because don't get me wrong, I love British Best Bitter, but it's not. It's one of those drinks that's quite niche. Not that many people walk into a pub and go, "Oh, a pint of bitter, please." Especially in the younger generations, they all like fizzy, effervescent IPAs and pale ales. So, being able to attract that crowd to cask, that's what you want. If you can replicate the flavors of these kegged, trendy beers on cask, you might be able to save it.
And that's what you're aiming to do. Save
Well, yeah, I mean,
cask. That's
you know, the percentage of cask sold, as you say, is declining year on year, and it's really sad.
what does success look like for you going forward for Aleworks Brewing Company?
Well, I mean, I can't honestly see we're going to be millionaires doing this by any measure, but to make enough to survive and do something I love, because I think doing a job like this, it's not really about the money in doing it, it's because I love brewing. You know, if I can make a comfortable living and do something that I'm really happy with, I'd much prefer that than be making loads of money but doing something that generally I'm not happy doing. It's not work. I come here and I'm doing something I love. I haven't worked a single day in the brewery. You know, I mean, I say that it is work. It's a lot of work, but it's fun to do it. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Can I cheekily ask, are you covering costs at the moment?
Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, we only actually launched this year. We wanted to make sure that the beer, when we start really going into the market, is beer that we're really happy with, and things that, we've had several times. We've had our all-day sucker beer. That one I was really keen to get right. The ability to send it out to the pubs, get feedback, see what people were thinking, that helped us perfect that recipe to where we're really happy with it now. So,
on that point about perfecting the recipe, as a listener to the show, thank you, you will know that often we're talking to people about kind of this pursuit of perfection. And one of the questions I think I always ask is, kind of when you're pursuing perfection, is there happiness or is there frustration to be found in that pursuit of perfection?
It's a bit of both, really. I mean, we've brewed the same batches of beer multiple times, changing slight variables and stuff. And obviously, if you're not getting it right, when you do a big brew, it's expensive. You're putting a lot of ingredients in, it's a lot of time, the electricity, things like this. If the beer's not coming out how you want it, it's disappointing and it makes you frustrated. You're kind of, wow, what are we doing wrong? But it is also very satisfying when you do get it right. When you go to the pub and you take one of your barrels of beer, and then a few days later they pull you a pint and it comes out exactly how you want it to, that's what makes it worth it. And also, when you walk into a pub, as someone who was just homebrewing for years, when you walk into a pub and you see people stood around drinking pints of your beer, that is a weird feeling. And it's...
Do you ever go, oh, I brewed that?
No. I'm far too shy to go and say... But it's I sometimes will wear my hoodie and just sort of stand by the bar,
waiting for someone to. Are you Liam from Aleworks?
No, I don't really. But it's one of those. It is so satisfying. When you actually see your product being enjoyed by people, that's it's the best feeling, really. And it does make it all worth it. All the hard work is totally worth it as well. And you never have to pay for beer again. So.
Liam, thank you so much for talking to me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming.
I'll have another swig of my beer, only a little bit, and then I will be on my way. I could only have a tiny sip because I had more recording to do, not because it wasn't absolutely lovely. My thanks to Liam and to Harriet, who wasn't around for the interview, but as you heard there, is an important part of the Aleworks Brewing Company. And my thanks as always to you for joining us on our travels. You can't see, but I am raising a glass to you now. Thanks for all your messages on Instagram, K.E. Talbot. We are heading to Wales soon. Plum and Ivory, you are too kind. Steve Burke, 512. Thanks for your service. Feedback, advice, and answers to my questions from everyone, greatly appreciated. We're doing a lot of recording in January, so the show is taking a brief break. Back Tuesday, February the 6th. Please circle your diaries. We've got some great people to visit. I cannot wait to go there with you. Before then, I wish you a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, I hope you share smiles with loved ones. See you in 2024.